And I don't know that parents understand there are a lot of people carrying in this capital. And to me, that should be a part of any permission slip. And so I'm going to propose legislation that parents have a right to know that and determine whether they want their kid to come here or not. It isn't necessarily a safe place to be. And I think that that is one of those rights of parents, to have the opportunity to determine whether they do or don't want their child going to the Capitol as a result of the fact that there are guns here and they are not permitted on the school grounds. So just something to think about.
People can carry into city buildings, into county buildings, into Capitol buildings. And my biggest concern about that is that these are the buildings that people come to complain about things.
It's going in the wrong direction, it's a wrong step. I think that that's becoming clear as more information comes in about that, but even on its face, there's something fundamentally wrong with stand your ground. Suicide prevention is something that I would like to think everyone could support. Red flag laws, they're seeing good results from that in different states. I hope there's some positive steps that could be taken in this session and as we look forward. Back to the constitutional amendment, I'm going to make a little pitch for Iowans for Gun Safety, but back to the constitutional amendment, I hear that, well, all we want to do is let the people decide. But the last constitutional amendment, people did decide, and there hasn't been any action on that.
Our habit at Moral Mondays where you all get to ask the questions, and Mary's jumped in, and that's awesome. No, that was invited in. That's awesome. But do just raise your hand, and it's a very informal gathering, Rick.
So this is a two-part question. The first about strict scrutiny. I've heard it described as elevating gun rights above that of the U.S. Constitution, the Second Amendment. Is that a good analysis of it? And the second question is, I understand there's a bill that would allow people dropping their children at school to carry loaded guns, and maybe you could discuss that a bit.
Was going to limit more of what a judge can decide on, or he would have to be more concerned about the person's right to bear that arm and his reasons for not being able to, compared to the overall safety of society. It would just weigh more towards the gun owner. Close?
I kind of look, I think most fundamental rights, when a reviewing court reviews restrictions on fundamental rights, including the Second Amendment or any of our First, Fifth, whatever, they sometimes use strict scrutiny. So on the most fundamental, like having a gun, your right to own have a firearm in your home to protect yourself, any restrictions on that are reviewed with strict scrutiny, because that's like the fundamental right that you have, just like freedom of speech. A lot of those restrictions are strict scrutiny, religion, and that.
One of the things that was being discussed over there is currently, I don't know how many of you know this, you can currently have your gun in your vehicle when you go on school property. It cannot be loaded. It should be in a sheath or a case or locked in a glove box or whatever. So what this would do, would allow, if you have the right to have a loaded concealed carry permit, that it allows you, if you're picking up your child, to drive up, pick up your child, and then leave the parking lot area. Some of the concerns are, does it allow an exit vehicle, does it allow them to walk around the parking lot? How far does that go? If somebody is coming to pick up their child from school and they have a concealed carry, they have their weapon on them because they carry. How far that bill goes is going to be the question. Does it allow in the parking lot, on the sidewalks? Where does it go from there? And that I don't know.
But basically, you couldn't stop somebody until they got to the door of the school, the way it's currently written. And is that really how we keep our children safe?
Because I think it's fair to say that if this passes, we are going to see a upkick in the amount of cases that we get in front of judges, such as lawsuits as the sheriff denied me my gun and I want to sue to get it back type things. So it could very easily go to our courts at the same time.
Strict scrutiny swings it to the other end of the spectrum. So you're really taking a lot of authority from judges to do a meaningful and reasonable review of whatever the particular issue is before them.
There's like 15 million AK-47 type military weapons out in the populace. Is there any movement at all about making those weapons themselves restricted or illegal?
As far as restricting any semi-automatics, I have not seen any legislation to come to.
I'm not sure there's any movement, but there are bills.
Representative Art State.
When the reviewing court will look at the fundamental nature of the right that's being exercised and, for example, a permit to carry. One could say that's kind of tangential or collateral, and that you have a right, you have a fundamental right to have a gun in your home to protect yourself, but so far the U.S. Supreme Court has not found that you have a fundamental right to carry. I think the way that the constitutional amendment that we're talking about is written, every single aspect of possessing or owning or carrying or loading or whatever a firearm would have to be reviewed with that very high standard. So personally, I do think it would probably make it very difficult for our current carry, permit to carry law to survive, because I personally don't think it could survive that strict scrutiny review. And most of the restrictions we have, I think, would be difficult.
The federal courts have not used strict scrutiny in the gun legislations, and they have not stricken down the gun regulations. And so what they've done is they've gone to Alabama, they passed this in Alabama, passed it in Missouri, first passed it in Louisiana, and in those 3 states, the governments in those states had to take on numerous challenges to their laws and amend them, and it's cost them a great deal of money. I understand in 2016, Missouri cost them $217 million just to defend against their gun regulations. Wow. And they have found that they can win in these local jurisdictions and in the state. The Second Amendment is one of those things where the more cherished it is and the least restrictions you have on it, I think the more public danger you have. As you have unrestricted access to weapons and guns of any kind. So it's one of those things that is, by the Supreme Court, those in the Supreme Court and the district courts, federal district courts, I think they understand that the Second Amendment isn't one of those amendments that's cherished and put in there as one of the inalienable rights, that it can have restrictions on it. And I don't think they wanted that, so they put it in the state constitution.
What it all boils down to is anything we pass down here, is it making our state safer or making our state less safe? And this is what we have to look at every law that comes to. So.